I find myself at somewhat of an awkward stage in life. Some of you are here, you know what I'm talking about. I've raised my kids, right? So they're pretty much gone. They've moved out. We still see them, obviously. Just saying with one of them, and they're around, but they're like not. It's different. They're adults, and I've transitioned into the day-to-day parenting into that more of an advisor. And if I give my advice and that's unwanted, they let me quickly know that they're adults and don't necessarily need my advice. And that's fine because I want them to have the freedom to do that. But it's an awkward time for me. I'm enjoying the whole empty nest thing because, we did this on purpose. We got married young, had kids young, thinking, hey, we'll be young when they're gone, and whatever that means. It's been pretty purposeful, but it's still a little bit awkward. And we're in that waiting stage, knowing at some point they'll be like grandkids, not pushing anybody, but I'm not even in a hurry. Personally, I'm just saying it's gonna happen, right? So that's my mental preparation coming up next. There is this weight. For any of you who are parents, do you know what I'm talking about? There's this weight, whether it's a child you gave birth to or were the father of, or a child that you brought into your home, or maybe you even entered later on. However it is, there is this weight that comes with looking into the eyes of that child, whether it be a little tiny baby or a 7-year-old, whatever, that you look and think, there's this soul, this eternal soul that God has put me in care of. That is a weight, right? I mean, if you haven't felt it, please feel it now. I mean, it's like the biggest job in your life is this soul or souls, depending on your family setting, that you have care of. And Cheryl and I, my wife and I, we took very seriously that weight. And because of that weight, we were very intentional about, from the start to even to this point, about how we would raise our kids. But also now, in this new stage, we're preparing ourselves to be very intentional about helping the grandkids and doing whatever role we have in that, to become people of God. We had 2 goals for our children. It wasn't that they would be the greatest athletes on the team or the most talented musicians in the group. It wasn't that they would be the smartest person in their class. Those are all great if it happens, but that wasn't our goal, right? That wasn't our passion in life. Our 2 goals were, one, that we would raise our children to be followers of Jesus Christ, and we would call that the most important thing. And then secondly, that they would be productive citizens in our community, whatever community they lived, right? So number 1, that they would be followers of Jesus, and secondly, they would just give back somehow, that we would have had an influence on someone who when we're gone, are still carrying the torch of something, productivity in this world. And so we find ourselves at a pretty satisfying time of life, and that we look at our children with a great amount of joy and say, I think we've done that. I don't want to put any pressure. I don't know what the future is, but as of today, at approximately 10:59, we can say we've done that. Who knows what'll come tomorrow? But they're very productive. One's an RN at ChildServe, routinely, literally saving lives. The other's going to school with plans to be a dentist. And who doesn't love the dentist? Yeah, never mind. We'll go somewhere else with that. And again, this isn't to put any undue stress on them. I'm not saying they're perfect, super spiritual human beings or anything like that. I don't want to get awkward or have you look at them that way, that they're the best human beings ever born or anything like that. I only bring this up to say, if you're someone with small children in your home, maybe because I'm a little further down the road, I might have something of value for you. today that I can share from experience. Not, beyond. When I was 20 and I talked about this stuff, it was stuff I read in a book that I thought was really cool. Now I can say, no, I did this. so maybe I have something to offer you. Or even if you're in my stage, as I'm preparing for whenever the day is, I'm that guy called Grandpa. I'm practicing with the grandpuppy right now, but that's different, right? That I'm preparing myself with a certain mindset of what I can do to help achieve those two goals of life, that they become followers of Jesus Christ, they become productive citizens in their community. So maybe there's something you can take from this conversation today. We're going to talk a little bit about the scripture that Emma read a little bit ago. Great job, by the way. Awesome job. But I want to read it again, bring it back into your memory. We had a couple songs since then and done some things. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. Your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise, and when you bind them as a sign on your forehead, or on your hand, and put them as frontlets between your eyes. It was like little box things they put on their head with a little scripture in it. They literally did that, right? You will write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now, today, as New Testament Christians, in the first, post-Jesus, right, we don't follow the law, per se, so we don't have to look at the law and say, I have to follow this word for word. The goal now for us is to look at the heart of what God is saying in the law. What is there? Because there's value in this for us. There's something he's saying to us. And he isn't saying, here's how you be a successful parent. Make sure you stencil a scripture on your wall. I mean, that's cool if you do. I'm just saying, but that's not the secret to parenthood. Or make sure you get some cool wall art that has a scripture verse on it that you can look at and go, okay. Again, that's cool, not just that, but that's not the secret to successful parenting. And he's not saying here, find a cool verse and tattoo it on your chest. That'd be awesome. I mean, do what you want, but that doesn't make you a great mom or a great dad doing that in itself. Or to have memory verse post-it notes all over the place. Again, that'd be great, but that's not going to make you the perfect mom or dad. His intent here, isn't even that you have a class time every day where you all recite the Bible as a scripture. Good idea. I'm not going to tell you not to. Actually, it'd be a good idea. But that's not what he's getting at here. What God's wanting you to do in these verses, it says it in the beginning, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, right? To fall so madly in love with God. That's the heart that's the starting point of these verses here. That you're so madly in love with God that you think about him when you wake up in the morning. And you think about him as you're going through your day. It's just like, oh, God, yeah, God. And you think about him when you eat, and you think about him when you go to bed at night, and you think about him with your family, and you're out on a walk, and God's just on your mind, and it's on your heart. And so when it's on your mind and your heart, you're just going to have conversations about him. It starts with your passion and your love for God. And he wants you to fall in love with him to the point that whatever it is you're doing, wherever it is you're going, whoever it is you happen to be with, that love and passion that you have for God just naturally passes out of you, just overflows out of you into the people you're around. And since if you're a mom or a dad with children at home, since your children are hanging out with you, that passion and love for God, they're just going to catch it. It's not sitting down, now here's what you need to know about God. Now you might need to have that conversation sometimes, but it's part of the family. And if there's scripture on the wall, cool. And if you have a great tattoo on your chest, awesome. But it's the love part of you're so in love with God that it just oozes out of you, and your kids are like, man, you just love God. Yes, I do. That's what we're talking about here. Now, obviously, there's some verbal teaching that goes on as you teach your children to know about God, and there's scripture to teach them, and there's things, they need to know that. But here's the deal: as the one who's passionately in love in God, and that love's overflowing into your children, you need, if you're going to teach them about God, to know a little bit about God, don't you? It's just like if you're going to teach your children math, you need to be like a step ahead. You don't need to be an expert in math. You don't need to be a physicist or something, or have a doctorate in math. You need to be a little bit ahead of them, right? When our kids were really young, we'd be driving down the road and say, hey, if you had 3 apples and I ate 1, how many would you have? That was pretty simple, but I was ahead of them at that point. There came a point when both of my girls were beyond me in math. Because I figured I'm a preacher. I only have to need to count to so many, right? I mean, I didn't really apply myself to advanced math classes. And so I didn't have to be able to teach them calculus and trigonometry and all these things because, they could figure that out. But I could teach them a passion and a love for math so that later on they could take it and build on that. Same thing with God. I have to be enough ahead of them to at least when they ask questions, I can answer simple questions, and I know how to find them at least and be able to guide them. But there will come a time when they will take that faith on their own, and they will go with it places that maybe you never have gone. Who knows? But you build the foundation. You put the building blocks in place for them. And once you start with that base, that you love God with all your heart and mind and soul, the rest is logistics. It just kind of happens. Now, I mentioned we were very intentional, and there are some things we did very purposefully as parents that maybe this will help you, maybe it won't, but the base comes from this verse that Emma read earlier, of loving God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and then teaching and talking about it as we get up and as we move and as we go on walks and as we do life together, the conversations. So I'm going to give you 4 very intentional choices that we made raising socially productive followers of Jesus. Now, if your goals are different, we'll have that conversation, but so I could have really boiled this down in a lot simpler form and said, this is how you make disciples of your kids. But this sounded more fun. 4 intentional choices to raise socially productive followers of Jesus. Because that's what we were trying to do. And this is what we did. First thing is you give them the real Jesus. The real Jesus. I was raised on flannel graph Jesus. How many of you remember flannel graph? Yeah, 70s and 80s, those were big, and smaller churches probably went into the 90s because they had no budget, right? Or no one told them we were done with flannel graph. But flannel graph was okay, and it was cool. It was an awesome tool. I'm not down on flannel graph, but it was like sometimes it was like paper with little flannel stuff on the back that would stick onto a flannel board, and it had bright colors. And they'd tell the story of Jesus, and there's Jesus, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's Jesus." That's a little kid. You're like, "This is really cool," because we didn't have that kind of stuff at home, so it was really neat. But then at some time you're like, then you hear about Joseph, and Joseph's a neat story. You see Joseph, he did look different than Jesus, because Jesus usually had like a blue robe and a beard and everything. And Joseph had a different colored robe. And then the next week you learn about Joshua, and you're thinking, boy, that guy looked a lot like Joseph. And then you get Ezekiel or something like that guy looks a lot like Joseph did. And pretty soon you go, wait a minute, there's only Jesus and everybody else. They're all the same person. And anyway, that's beside the point. The thing is about the Sunday school version of Jesus. And I don't like the term, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's a little bit watered down from the real Jesus. And here's what I mean. Like right now, your kids are down the hall in junior worship, if you have children at that age. And Cheryl happens to be doing it. My wife's doing it this week because Shanna's out of town on a retreat thing with a college group. Anyway, we're talking, part of the lesson is Saul going into a cave and having a bowel movement and a story that goes with that. And she's like, do I bring that up in junior worship? I mean, how many of the boys are just going to be stuck on that and they'll never hear another thing, right? I mean, let's be honest. Who doesn't like bathroom humor, right? If you're a boy. And so that's not a bad thing or a good thing, but it's part of the story, and it flavors the story. Poor choice of words. Gives some aroma to it. I don't know. It changes the story. A dude in a cave using the restroom. to the point that you will miss the stuff in the story. So in a setting like that, you might just skip that part. And then you get to go to college, you go, wait a minute, he was, what? Nobody told me that, So you get kind of the public-friendly version of Jesus, right? And here's my point in this thing. Somewhere along the line, your kids need to know the real Jesus. Okay? And not just the flannel graph Jesus. They need to know the Jesus who said, hey, guess what? Whoever wants to save his life must be willing to pick up his cross and die. Are you willing? Will you die for me? I mean, literally die. What do you mean figuratively? You mean like be uncomfortable and like turn the air conditioner down, right? No, will you die for me? So somewhere along the line, your kids need to hear those things. Now, hopefully, in our setting, we don't do flannel graph. We do fun videos, which is, that's the new version of flannel graph. But hopefully they're hearing that. But as parents, you need to make sure your children are hearing some of the stronger messages of Jesus. Whoever loves his father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. Tell that to your kids. You love God more than me, right? Well, what? I mean, they need to hear. They need to know that. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Guess what, kids? You want to be a follower of Jesus? Some people will hate you, and they will lie to you, and they will lie about you. Some people will beat you up because you love Jesus. Go ahead, have your sandwich and go to school, But they need to hear that, right? Because it's going to happen, isn't it? That's not like a theory. There are people in my life who don't like me because of my faith. It's just that simple. Some people hate me because of what I do for a living. They just do. It's good for your kids to know that because they're going to find that person, and when that shocks them, they won't know what to do with that if they haven't heard it. They haven't heard it. No one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Somewhere along the line, your kids got to know that there's priorities in life, and there's servitude, and there's masters in your life. Which direction are you going to go? You can have money and God, but you can't serve both. You can't serve them. Our kids deserve the real Jesus. And it's really, you can't hope that other people are going to teach them this. You have to teach them these things. The real Jesus is who they will meet one day, because I know it's awful to even go there, but one day your children will breathe their last breath, and they will find themselves face to face with the Savior. And you want to make sure they know him. That they're not like, who's this? I thought you were flannel graph. I mean, you got to go there and teach them. They'd better learn that he's more than a cotton candy eating, happy all the time Jesus, bright and colorful flannel graph guy. There's tough words too with Jesus. When my kids were young, and it's possible they don't even remember this now. They might, but like really young, because I was intentional. I was building layers. I would ask them, like probably under 2 years old, who's your favorite dad? And of course, in the beginning, it's like, well, you are. I was like, oh, no, I'm not. God is. I'm going to let you down. I'm going to fail you. I'm going to disappoint you. He never will. Make sure he's number one. And it's just a simple thing, which is a little game. As far as they knew, it was a game we played. Who's your favorite dad? You are. Nope, God is. And then they learned, who's your favorite dad? God is. Yeah. It was no big deal, but it was a lesson as part of a conversation of our family and the kids growing up. That was something I was very intentional about, because as the years went on, the conversations became more complex. When you're 2, all you need to know is, does my daddy love me? Do I have something to eat? That kind of stuff. And whatever I'm doing, that dad loves you. Know that. If I'm a big jerk, that dad always loves you. And but as you get older, the conversations become more complex. And our parenting decisions always went back to Jesus. And the conversation was usually something along the line, well, as followers of Jesus, this is why we do this. As followers of Jesus, this is why we dress modestly in our home. Well, nobody else dresses like this. Well, we can't, I can't answer to them. But followers of Jesus dress modestly. You know what I'm talking about if you're a parent of especially girls, of where do you go to get clothes that are modest in the teen section? you know, you have to get creative and when all of their friends are dressing immodestly, and when all of the musicians and TV stars, all the pictures and images coming their way are not modest, it's like, well, that's weird, that's different. Yes, it is. We're just followers of Jesus. We do modest, right? A follower of Jesus is honest and trustworthy, and those conversations come up through time. Follower of Jesus views dating differently than non-followers of Jesus. It's a different world for us. It's a different goal in mind that we have than non-followers of Jesus. A follower of Jesus lives up to a certain code. These are all conversations that happen all throughout life as you're walking along the path, when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, just doing life. And your love for Jesus, this stuff just comes out and overflows into the conversations that you have with your children. I watched a lot of television when my children were younger. That was very painful for me. Some of you with young children may know what I'm talking about. You know how many episodes of Barney I saw? Wow, But it's the TV my kids were watching, and it's the television their friends were watching that they were talking about at school and in the playground and whenever doing stuff. And so I needed to know what was going on in those programs, not just from reading a blog or hearing what some other parent told me. I needed to know, I needed to hear for myself what was going on in the world of my children. Because young children don't understand that every single television program is a lesson. If someone is teaching something through maybe adults don't, that's true with adult television too, that every episode of every television program or cartoon is teaching your children something. I wanted to know what was being taught so that I could be there on the scene at the moment and bring correction, like, that's probably really not a Jesus thing, is it? Jesus probably wouldn't really have done that, would he have? So we could have those conversations, not like we're going to sit down and talk about the program. It wasn't one of those. I heard that song you were listening to. It was more like a correction at the moment. Wow, that doesn't sound very godlike, does it? No, it doesn't. And you kind of left it at that. It was the conversation and what was going on in their life, and I was a part of it. And so that was a big part of our time growing up. And also I got to hang out with kids doing that. Would I have rather been watching the big game? Yes. or something a little more exciting? Yes. Or taking a nap? Or something, I don't know, something? Yes. But that allowed me to have conversations about their world. And here's the deal. If you build that foundation throughout the years, because their television programs change, and when they start getting into the teenage years, the television they watch, the lessons they are teaching, you're not going to find them in this book. They are anti about everything in this book. And they're pretty in your face and blatant, and all their friends, the cool shows are even usually extremely against Jesus. So I would watch things that would make, if it was really crazy, we just wouldn't watch them. But there were things that would just make my heart melt. But I wanted to be able to say, we understand this is not Jesus, right? This is anti-faith, right? Hoping that the hearts in them would go to the point where I can't watch this. Rather than just saying, you can't watch this, I wanted their heart to get there. And it was so satisfying at different points to hear the children say, yeah, I really can't watch that. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Because that was my goal, not just to give them a list of what they can and can't do, but to get into their heart. Because why? We love Jesus. That's why. We love Jesus. You build that foundation, and then what happens, you blink your eyes a couple times, and they're headed off on a bus or a car or whatever to go off to college, and you're like, holy moly, now they're gone. What are they going to do? You give them a foundation. You've given them a foundation, and that voice is continually, my poor kids are going to hear my voice the rest of their lives, and they're like, well, just little things here and there, but it was all part of building that, give them the real Jesus. Okay, next thing, don't worry, the other ones aren't this long, but this is the foundation. That was important, give them the real Jesus. Number 2, prepare them for the narrow road. A lot of our conversations centered around the fact that they have made a choice, and this is once they became followers of Jesus themselves, and they're trying to figure out that, there's a point between, yes, I want to follow Jesus, and I'm really following Jesus as my Lord, right? There's a transition that takes a time to do that as children who grew up in the faith. My conversations were often pointed toward having the conversation, you realize you have made a very unpopular choice. I mean, they knew that. It wasn't hard for them to figure out because none of their friends thought the way they did, or not none of them, but a lot of them didn't. The people at school, the people around them, the people on the team, whatever it is they were doing, they didn't think the way they thought. So it was a continual reminder that, you're choosing a different way. And your job is to focus on the narrow road, no matter what your friends are doing on the wide road, that leads to destruction. You're on this narrow road that leads to life. And so keep focused. And so it was a continually reminder of going back to the narrow road, going back to the narrow road. And those continual conversations, that thing that everybody's doing probably isn't a good idea. Because, would Jesus be doing that? Well, no, okay. The TV program that everybody's watching, it may be cool and everybody's talking about it, it's in the top, ratings and everything, or that song is really popular right now and you can't get it out of your head. Maybe that's a good song to get out of your head because you don't want that in your heart. That's the last thing you want. So these were the conversations. And we would have the conversations that all these, the pop culture is leading the sheeple of America into a wide path. And I was really proud of this picture I found. I don't know why. But honestly, that's it. Our country is full of sheeple. And so if a rock star comes up and sings a song about whatever, everybody's like, yeah, that's right. It's like, really? Just because a rock star or a movie star said something, that made it right? Or a writer in Hollywood said something, that made it right? So the goal was to think beyond the musician or think beyond the artist or think beyond, the television show. You focus on the narrow road. That's what you're responsible for. Did they still, listen to the songs? Sure. We didn't ban everything from them. There were some things we just cut off, but they still participated in life. They were in the world, but not of the world. That's teaching them how to be that in the real world. I don't think I ever used the word sheeple a whole lot. I just love the term, and it's just kind of fun. I hope that's not like a bad picture. I don't know where that's linked to. My kids loved the show Full House growing up. Anybody have kids that did that? Or maybe some of you were like, yeah, I remember that. We did a lot, and they loved Mary-Kate and Ashley and the whole mystery video series as they had. We had like a billion of those, and they were cute, and they were innocent, and I watched all of them. And it was bad acting. Man, it was bad acting. Especially the videos. I thought, man, they became billionaires, really bad actors. But the kids absolutely loved it. And like we all do, they could identify, hey, these people are about my age, and they're singing, so I want to be a singer, and they're actors, so I want to be an actor. And I mean, we all do that. We identify with certain people, think, yeah, this is really cool, I'm going to do that too. And so those were opportunities, just doing life together, saying, hey, I didn't want to be like Debbie Downer, but say, here, I just want you to be aware that I don't know these people, I'm not judging them, so don't get me wrong. They're probably on the wide road, right? I mean, the culture where they work and live is a very wide path, and it's a different road than you're on. So there's a possibility in a few years, they're going to make some choices that you're going to say, I can't believe they did that. I remember being just shocked, in Hollywood people do something. No one ever told me that they were not Jesus people. I thought everybody was Jesus people growing up, right? So it was just kind of a warning, be careful. And by the way, your friends are going to do things. You're going to make choices too, and you're just going to be like, just kind of like, just narrow road, wide road, you keep on the narrow road. And so when news articles started coming out of I don't know how much was true and what's real. And that's my point isn't them. My point is the whole culture starts doing crazy things. You know what? You don't have to go that way. You don't have to follow that direction. You stick on the narrow road. Because the reality is most of your friends are going to think differently than you. It's just what it is. And sometimes it's hard. And sometimes we talk about Noah and his children. Think how hard it was for Noah and his kids. Literally no one else believed the same. How did that work out? Well, Noah lived and his kids. All the friends died. Keep on the narrow road. We just have those kind of conversations. 3, actively include them in the life of the church. I love to see our youth involved in stuff. Like even on the band today, we have students playing the drums and the electric guitar. That's just kind of cool. I love that. I love to see Emma reading scripture today. Now, I was a little bit intentional. I thought, hey, we need to be having our kids do stuff. I thought, well, yeah, because I'm talking about it today, But honestly, we should be more intentional about getting our children involved. They are the church, right? It's not like you will be the church someday. You are the church if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, whatever age you are. And we need to be more intentional about getting our kids involved with things. I love seeing our kids, some of our kids involved in junior worship and teaching and leading. There's just different things kids do. We've had them involved with senior meals before. They've helped out with cafe. A lot of times families will come and do cafe together, and the kids will take different roles in the cafe. They're serving, they're taking part and being involved in the cafe. I've seen families come and clean the church building as a family, and you got kids running vacuums and mopping and cleaning windows or whatever. And you know what? The kids don't always do it perfectly. That's okay. They're serving and they're learning how to be part of a church community. That's important. I'm more impressed with that than I am that, wait a minute, there's still a fingerprint on that window. It's like, there's going to be one anyway. It's great to get your kids. So as parents, find ways to get your children involved in the life of the church. And it can start when they're toddlers. You can be like, hey, someone dropped their cup on the floor. Can you go throw that away for me? I didn't do it. I know. Neither did I. Just pick that up. That's just helpful. As a toddler, they can learn how to help in the church community. Bring them Christmas caroling. That's a lot of fun. You know what's been impactful? Two things about our Christmas caroling that people always talk about. We go to Child Serve, and there's children there that maybe your children haven't seen people in a medical condition like that. So some of them are pretty severely physically hurt, and we're singing to them, and they can only respond by like moving a hand or something, or kind of smiling, but they're there, they're getting it, and they're serving, and it's just good for them to experience that. And then we'll go to a hospice. We always do this at the end, because at the hospice there's this deep, weighty thought of this is their last Christmas, and we're singing to them, and oftentimes family members come out and they're just in tears, and they're like, thank you. This is the last time, Uncle John will ever have anyone carol to him in his life. And like we were part of that. And for your kids to be a part of giving that way, it's really cool. Anyway, find ways. Be creative. Here's the last one. I told you this would be quicker, but maybe I've stretched it. This one's really quick. Point them toward kingdom work. Point them toward kingdom. This is bigger than just community in the church work. Bigger work. When Danielle was really young, it was obvious that she was a good, strong singer, right? And I thought, okay, let's get her beyond her walls and beyond her goals of singing with Mary Kate and Ashley, making her own video series. What kingdom stuff? Well, there's a strength. So I often would go out to Bible camp and lead worship out there. And so I was like, boy, Danielle, I could really use some help leading worship out there. I didn't need help. But she'd come out and she'd get a guitar when she learned guitar, and she'd sing. And here she is in elementary or junior high, early junior high, whatever age, and she's singing away. And it was just a spark in her some kingdom stuff. You're doing something for someone outside of this group, someone outside of you, and through that, it was cool to see her develop a passion. Like, hey, I can actually do this. Aren't you glad she leads worship? I don't know, that's kind of cool. Man, I'm her dad, but it's so cool to see that develop. And then she went off to college, to learn stuff about it, and this kingdom stuff. So get beyond. Now she's an RN. Shanna's talking about dentistry. Who knows where that will ultimately end up? And we've already had conversations about, hey, think of the medical mission trips we're going to get to go on. I don't know what I'll do. I'll paint walls, but they can do real stuff, And it'll be so cool. If you want to get Shanna, watch her eyes spark, mention medical mission trip, and Danielle too. But it's like Shanna's not there yet, and she just already thinks about the thought of going to a third world country and helping people with their teeth. It's just kind of exciting to her. And who knows, this week we're running off to a missions convention to get that bite for kingdom work and to keep it going. Why? Because that's how God's kingdom works, right? So go beyond just this local setting to how can we help in the kingdom. What we're talking about here is not just parenting. Really, it's discipleship. That's why I say, as grandma, grandpa, you can do these same things. As neighbor, you can do these same things. Every single one of us have people in our lives that we can spiritually mentor with the things that we've been talking about this morning. Our job is to introduce them to Jesus. It's really that simple. Your job as a mom or as a dad is not just to get your kids to act right, not just to give them a list of here's how I want you to act so that later I can say you acted right. It's to pour your love of God into them so hopefully they'll catch it. Now it's still up to them to catch it. That's what's heartbreaking about parenting. Not every time does the child catch it. You just hope that foundation you laid at some point they'll get it, right? At some point they'll reach out and grab it and go with it. But they still have to do that. Our job is just to do the best we can and pray that God connects with them as well. Introduce them to Jesus so that they can take Jesus into their homes and their children will take Jesus into their homes. It's disciples who make disciples who make disciples. It's just the same thing that we do in the church. You're just doing it in the home. That's what it's all about.